Welcome to this week's webinar. Have you ever wondered why you, your loved ones, your coworkers seem a little bit more on edge during this time? Have you noticed yourself getting a little frustrated, maybe cutting someone off, or even just being overwhelmed with emotions? Well, that's completely normal. That's our survival brain. The fear center of our brain is in overdrive right now with everything going on. And actually understanding what the impact of all of that is on ourselves, our health, our bodies, our families, our loved ones, and then being able to make some shifts away from it is going to be very important during this time frame. And so this is really important right now because with this entire pandemic environment, there's things like health, financial security, job security, our loved ones, their health. And as we look at that puts us in a state of survival. Our fear center is on overdrive going on right now. And so, this came alive for me just the other day. So my fiance and I went to the grocery store to kind of stock up on groceries so that we wouldn't have to leave the house for the next 2 weeks. And we went through, did our normal thing, picked up everything on our list, checked out, and got back in the car. And right when we got in the car, both of us just let out this sigh of relief. And we looked at each other and we were like, was that the most stressful store visit you have ever had? And I was like, yeah, I was on edge the entire time. And what came to life for me is what I teach every day. And that's that immediately when I stepped into an environment where there were other people, everyone has some high levels of anxiety and fear going on, I felt it overwhelm myself. And I was a little bit short. Yeah, pick that one, let's go. And it was just that sigh of relief, like, wow, okay, so I'm actually realizing that was completely normal what was going on. And I could feel the stress and anxiety. And so I'm sure all of you are experiencing the same thing right now. And so, though this is relatively new research, many of us have heard small bits and pieces, read things in articles, but today we're really going to talk about what's the impact of those research articles, what's the impact of what's going on when we're in a state of survival, especially during this time. And so that's what this webinar is really designed to do. We're going to talk a little bit about what's the impact, what it does to our bodies, our health, our mind, and then we're going to talk about 4 really quick, easy, simple techniques that you can implement right now for overcoming that fear center of our brain. And so let's begin here on step 1. And it's going to seem simple, but it's really powerful. It's empowering to you is to recognize that our fear center exists. Recognize that our survival brain exists and just label it as normal. It's something that happens in all of us. And so when we can do that, we give ourselves power to say, okay, this happens, this is normal. Now, how do I shift away from it? And so I want to start by saying our fear center, okay, the scientific name would be the amygdala. Our fear center, our survival state, was something that was developed thousands and thousands of years ago with cavemen and cave women. And what it was all designed to do was our very first brain, and it was designed for survival. It was designed that when you went out and you picked berries, you went out on a hunt, you knew that if something came out of the bushes, a bear, a lion, a tiger came out of the bushes, you knew you had 3 options. You either fight, flight, or freeze. And that's your options you had. And that's what that brain went into overdrive and did. Now, if you fast forward to today's pandemic era, when we sit in today's environment, we are in a, do we fight, flight, freeze, or appease? They've added that last one, appease. That is, go along with what someone else is saying. When your boss says this is what we're going to do, you just go, okay. So what happens is that our survival brain, our fear center is overactivated when we see threats. And right now in this environment, we see more threats than ever. We see the threat of health, we see the threat of the job security, and we see the threat of being stuck at home and not being able to live our lives. And so when we look at that, we're all in that heightened state, which is why we're getting frustrated, why we're cutting off people, why we're getting short with people. And so first and foremost, like I said, we need to recognize that it exists. And so I want to share the term with you, amygdala hijack. Amygdala, right, is our survival brain. That's the official name. And amygdala hijack was coined by Daniel Goodman. And it's actually basically, if you think about it, it's basically that we have adult temper tantrums, right? Is that we are triggered by a perceived threat, and then we get into a heightened state where honestly our emotional response, the response we give off, is much greater than the outside stimuli. So when something happens to us and we kind of blow up and we get frustrated, it may be not really aligned with what happened. And I'm sure you've seen this before. Think about it with a kid. When your child, when they want dessert and they didn't eat their food, so they don't get dessert, and they seem to just like throw this huge crying temper tantrum, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, dessert is this small and they threw this big issue out of it. Well, we do the same thing as adults, right? When someone cuts us off while driving, it really didn't do anything to us. We basically maybe tapped our brakes, slowed down a little bit, so we lost about 1/100th of a second off our drive, right? But we get so frustrated. We get so angry, we might be yelling at the person. And so that's what amygdala hijack does, is it throws us into a state where that's where we go to. We just go into immediate, how do we handle something? How do we survive? And so the other thing I want to kind of point to is this idea of the term, and I'm sure many of you have heard of it, negativity bias. That is our amygdala, that's our survival brain, so strong that it's taking over for our problem-solving brain. And so the whole phenomenon of negativity bias is that humans actually give more psychological weight to bad experiences than good ones. And so the research really shows that it is almost a 3 times stronger impact when we have a negative situation happen than positive. And that's why if you think about it, we always remember like insults. We remember put downs from people a lot more than we remember the praise we were given. And so that has a really strong impact. And so when you think of this time, what's going on right now, there is so much negativity and fear that we don't want that to be the only thing that has the strong impact on us. We need to remember that, okay, if this has a 3 times stronger impact, we have to make a very conscious choice to be in this positive emotions, to share good experiences together and to reinforce them. And that's gonna be part of what we talk about. So with recognizing, the fear center exists, it's really about, number one, just recognizing that it exists, right? It's normal. We just talked about that it came from our ancestors, that this is something that we cannot take out of us. One of my partners always says that one time one of their clients said, well, could I just remove that little amygdala from my brain? Well, that would be great. But the problem is it keeps us in survival. So it's needed, but is it always the reaction that serves us best? So the first and foremost is to understand that it's normal. The second thing is to notice how you react to threats. Are you a fight, flight, freeze, or appease person? And being able to actually understand and go, okay, I'm a fighter, right? And so then I notice as I get more frustrated that, okay, I'm going into fight mode. Or maybe it's freeze right now. Maybe it's I have no idea how to handle the current situation. And so you want to recognize, notice, and then label your reaction, right? So being able to say, well, okay, I'm noticing that I'm going into a freeze right now. My fear center is in overdrive. And that is the best thing you can do, is just to recognize and label it as normal. And so one thing that we'd like you to try out here, journal for just 1 week. I'll even narrow it down to just 1 day. And I want you just to journal, reflect on when you notice yourself getting triggered. So I want you to say, okay, I felt myself getting really upset with my child earlier. And I want you to write down your reaction. So were you a fight, flight, freeze, or appease? And what caused it? And then take a deep breath and just acknowledge that you noticed it. That there's a lot of power behind, oh my gosh, I noticed that I got frustrated with my child today. Because all that time before, we may have gotten frustrated, moved on, and pretended like it didn't happen. Or just move past it. But taking the time to notice it, to write it down, to say, here's what caused it, it will bring a lot more awareness. And then you can use the next tips to start to overcome it. So it's very powerful. So first and foremost, I want you to really understand that your fear center, your amygdala, your survival brain is something that's completely normal in all of us. And at this type of time, this crisis type of time, we are in an overdrive state of fear. Next thing we want to talk about are some of the techniques for overcoming it. So the first and foremost one we're going to talk about is, after recognizing it, We're going to talk about something as simple as deep breaths. Yeah, it's that simple. Deep breaths, mindfulness, meditation makes a huge difference. There's actual research that shows just by taking 3 deep breaths, you can close down that fear center of your brain and open up your problem-solving center. Just in a deep breath. Now, that was done on some Buddhist monks who are extremely mindful, so it takes a lot of practice, preparation, reflection on it, but a deep breath can make a change. And so very simple, the coaching tips here are very simple. And that is to practice 3 different things. The first and foremost is that taking 3 deep breaths can do a lot for you. Just breathing in and breathing out 3 times before you maybe respond to something that's frustrating. What if you get an email and you're a little bit frustrated about it? Minimize it, take your 3 deep breaths, reread it, and answer. Those 3 deep breaths just give your brain enough time to move from, okay, immediately it goes to our survival brain. Nope, we're gonna give it a second, let it come up and get to our prefrontal cortex, which is our problem-solving brain. The second thing is, wait 5 seconds to respond. Just count to 5 when you're really frustrated. If it's maybe, like I said earlier, if right now you're stuck at home, working every day, you're not really able to get outside, you've got your kids there, they're trying to have school and activities and do things, and it's just frustrating. The next time you're really close to getting frustrated with them, I just want you to count to 5, slowly in your brain. Let yourself just breathe, count to 5, and you'll see that you'll have a whole different reaction because you just gave yourself time to breathe. And the last thing is very easy, and that's that 10 minutes of mindfulness, meditation, reflection, or even just a couple little 3-minute intervals where you just say, okay, at 10 o'clock, I'm just gonna close my eyes for 3 minutes and take a deep breath. I have to tell you that we did this in a training exercise, and they closed their eyes, they did deep breathing, we listened to calming music, and there was an entire new energy in the room after we did that. And so that mindfulness, that 3 minutes can make a whole big difference in your day. So, like I said, I want you to practice one of those. Practice the 3 deep breaths before you answer your child, maybe your spouse, your coworker, and just reflect on, okay, when I took those 3 deep breaths, was I able to do something a little bit different when I spoke to them? Was I able to calm myself, relax myself, and come at it on the way that I'd like to? Very powerful. The next technique is talking about going into discovery conversations. And with what's going on right now in the environment, discovery conversations are essential. They're actually what provide you, your loved ones, your coworkers, the time, the openness, the opportunity, the space to communicate, to have conversation. And so when we can actually open that space to people to say, hey, we have a safe space here, let's come talk, let's come share what's going on, how can we overcome it together, how can we support each other, you're gonna see a lot of growth. And so what I'm gonna do from here is I'm gonna share some questions with you in this email and in a link below. But a couple of them that I would definitely talk about a little bit are some of the ones that I really like that really apply to what's going on right here. Are you allowing other people to support you or serve you as a resource? So are you allowing other people to support you right now? That's a really big question when you can see that someone's overwhelmed with maybe emotions, frustration. Are you allowing other people to support you? And how are we doing that? How are we allowing those people? Even just think about, when was the last time you acknowledged yourself for doing a good job? We're almost at week 3, 4 for some people of being at home trying to educate their kids, trying to cook dinners, trying to manage their online life with work, trying to manage the health of their families. When is the last time you acknowledged yourself for doing a good job? So think about these types of questions. I'm going to provide you a list, but what I want you to do is just reflect on them, think about them, open the space for yourself, for others, about how can you actually communicate more during this time when you're seeing yourself in that fear center, because those conversations can help us overcome that. So what I'll have you do is develop a list of 3 to 5 open-ended questions to actually add to your tool belt. We'll provide you a list of 10, but I want you to just read them out loud every day. Try to add them to your tool belt so they roll right off your tongue, and then start to try them out with your loved ones. when you do find yourself getting frustrated, when you find them being frustrated, just reflect on this. The next thing, and the last one I want to talk about, is keeping a gratitude journal. One key to our personal and our professional growth and development is bringing a lot of gratefulness to our everyday circumstances. And that's no matter what. Even in this really hard time we're in right now, gratitude is just seeing and noticing what is before you and looking for where you can be grateful for the everyday life. And so what I want you to do for a coaching tip here is, our ideas are, number one, welcome your daily coaching. And what that means is that we learn something new every single day. We're navigating something new right now every day. Welcome those learnings. How can you get better? Second is to be grateful for what brings you pleasure. So that might be that the weather's getting nicer, that you got to take a beautiful walk outside today, that you had a great, healthy conversation with your child, your spouse, your friend, that maybe you had a funny Zoom meeting today at work, or you had a wonderful cup of coffee. Look for the things that bring you pleasure in your day, because oftentimes we let them just go by. We don't start to recognize them. And the last one is contribute to something. The act of generously giving our time without needing anything in return, jumping on that Zoom call for a friend and just being there to listen to them, to talk to them, that is us contributing. And that is where we receive gratitude from. And so what I want you to do is just take a few minutes a day and write down what you are grateful for. Start with at least 3 things. Find 3 things, even in this very difficult time, that you are grateful for. And practice it with your loved ones, your family, your kids during this time. What are they grateful for? That will have a lot of power in looking for the good, getting away from our brain's fear center. Right? I just said, have you wondered when you, your loved ones, we all seem more on edge, we're getting frustrated. Well, right? Deep breaths, recognizing that it's absolutely normal. Actually going into discovery conversations. And on top of that, keeping that gratitude journal for you and your loved ones, that will help us slow down that overdrive state of fear and actually access, right, our problem solving, our compassion, our creativity, our juices to connect with people. It will bring that to life during this time. And so what I ask you to do is to try out these activities. Work on recognizing which type of fear center am I? Do I go into fight, flight, freeze, or peace? How can I remember to take deep breaths? Do I set a timer on my phone that every day at 2 times a day, I just take 3 minutes to deep breathe? Remember to add some questions to your discovery conversation tool belt. Ask some questions you can ask with your loved ones, with your family, with yourself. And lastly, remember to keep a journal. To actually write down what you're grateful for. Practice it with your loved ones, your kids. Teach them how to look at that. And lastly, I want to thank you for being here. I want you to thank you for being watching this recording at a later time as well. And know that this type of material is out on LinkedIn, on YouTube all the time. Remember to follow us, to subscribe, and know that next week, the week of the 14th of April, we're actually going to be talking about the concept of that when we go through this change that we're going through right now, it's really a loss. And how do we start to acknowledge that? And our kids, think about it. They're losing their friends. They're losing their structure at school, right? Us, we're losing our coworkers that we talk to every day. And so how do we handle that loss during these chaotic times? And that's what we'll be talking about next week. And I hope to see you there. Thank you very much. And I appreciate it. And remember, our brain fear center is in overdrive. And we have some techniques now to relax, take a deep breath, to access that part of our brain that allows us to have problem solving, creativity, and compassion with others. Thank you.